Buffalo Bills are hosting the Las Vegas Raiders in their home opener here in Week 2, coming off a tough loss against the New York Jets, while the Raiders are coming off a good win against their division opponent, the Denver Broncos. And Ryan, coming to this game here, it's still very early on in the season, and it's kind of hard to tell exactly the identity of each team. But I want to talk about the Raiders here first, real quick, because I know there's going to be a lot to talk about with the Bills and their performance on the Monday Night Football game. But with the Raiders, I feel like they're going to be something similar to what we saw this past week. Very Jimmy Garoppolo, game manager. They're going to definitely split split targets between Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers are going to be the main two targets, and then the rest of the company as well.
They kind of remind me a little bit of the Vikings from last year. The Vikings, I don't think, were a great team. I think that the Vikings were an average team. They just got really lucky in some situations where they won close games. And to be fair, they were in close games. They just were able to somehow win them just about every time. And I think when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, I think Kirk Cousins is better, but like similar game manager style. Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers in the league. They have Jacoby Myers, who unfortunately is definitely in concussion protocol. And like he's a really good complement to Devontae Adams. And so like decent offensive line, they have a good pass rush, but the secondary is probably lacking a little bit. So that to me, I think, is kind of who the Raiders are, and they're going to be competitive in a lot of these games. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to be like a world beater like we saw Philadelphia and Kansas City of last year. And so it's going to be really interesting. We did just finish watching the Monday night game where the Bills came off that loss, as you mentioned, and I don't think that they're quite the world beaters that they have been in years past. I think they're slightly on the decline, and they let Zach Wilson mount a comeback on them in the fourth quarter, and so like, I don't know. That to me, I think says something. I don't know, and that's a really tough Monday Night Football loss in Week 1.
I'll come back to that here in a second. I want to focus more on the Raiders. I actually think that is a very fair comparison to the Minnesota Vikings team last year because Garoppolo and Cousins are the same type of player, especially now, or similar types of player, especially compared to today's modern type of football. Yeah, you got your number one and Devontae Adams. He's your Justin Jefferson. And then Jacoby Myers, who I was having a really good game. I believe he had a touchdown and 8 catches and like 91 yards. Especially since Devontae Adams was really struggling with Pat Surtain, which a lot of people struggle with Pat Surtain. That's not saying much about Devontae Adams here. But they were able to get good pressure overall on the defense. Not a great defense, but Max Crosby just seemed to constantly be just kind of just causing some stress, some disturbance. They were able to stop this Broncos offense, which is jury's still out, I think, in my opinion, on how well they performed overall. But I think this team, I just don't see the playoff capabilities with the Raiders yet as I do with some of these other teams that I would have considered like my pick for wildcard teams, like or potential wildcard teams like Miami, Chargers, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I would always put them more in kind of that 11, 10 to 12 type range with like the Browns, and then who's another good team? I think and the Patriots. That's kind of where I would put them. But that being said, though, they did win, and hey, at the end of the day, you just need to keep winning games. I know it's a completely different team from last year. It seems like, but they had so many one-score losses last year that just a couple different plays go their way, and maybe that's kind of also where similarity to Minnesota. As long as they just keep winning these one-score games, if they keep having these comebacks, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as you make the playoffs. So, move over to the Bills, though. Quickly address the comment. Zach Wilson did not beat the Bills. The Bills beat themselves. The Bills,
yes, but
when you have 4 turnovers and then allow a punt return for a touchdown in overtime to end the game, they just beat themselves.
I was more referencing the fact that like the defense struggled against this Zach Wilson led offense. Like they let the Zach Wilson led offense go down and score a touchdown.
So I'll still disagree with that. My concern is the fact that the offense kept putting the defense in horrible situations. Like
that is also very fair.
The last interception, I think, or no, like
Josh
Allen. Josh Allen missed the snap, and it's on the 30 with 4 minutes left. It's like, you got Greg Zerloin. I draft him on my fantasy team, so he's the best kicker in the league. He's gonna make those kicks. But so that's what I think it's my opinion on is I don't really know how good this defense is because they played against Zach Wilson. You know what I mean? Because everybody knew as soon as Aaron Rodgers went down and Zach Wilson came in, it's like, okay, this dude's going to throw picks and they're going to run the ball. And that's exactly what he did. He threw a pick and they ran the ball constantly. Brees Hall did bust off an 83-yard run, and they did have some good screenplays, which essentially they sent all the receivers deep, and then they just dumped it off to Brees Hall, who is one of the best running backs in the league. I hope he stays healthy all year, because also I drafted him on my fantasy team as well. But that's besides the point. My concern, and just something to watch, I'm not too concerned overall with Josh Allen's going to bounce back, but how will this offense kind of continue to proceed? Will there still just be these errors? Will they still be playing catch up? It seemed like for a majority of the time, because this offense, now they're going up against the Jets defense, which is one of the best in the league, but this offense, they seem to struggle against this Jets defense. They only had one touchdown drive, and causing these turnovers. They're going to have to obviously eliminate those turnovers, which I think that they will, especially Josh Allen. I think he's going to clean that up. But will they be able to go and have productive 5-6 minute drives and not rely on the long ball or the deep ball in these explosive plays?
Yeah, that to me, Josh Allen did not have a good night. He was responsible for all 4 turnovers. The snap that he fumbled and then got and then ran wasn't a bad snap. He just dropped it. And then after he regained it, fumbled it again.
Yeah.
The 3 interceptions, 2 of them were kind of arm punts. They were both on 3rd and long. So I'm not holding those 2 against him too much. I still think they were horrible decisions to even throw up there. But the 3rd one was just really bad. Gabe Davis was not open. And that corner was clearly undercutting the route from the beginning. I also am going to put about 20% of the blame on Gabe Davis. He rounded that out route out very poorly and then did not come back for the football at all. And he just totally let the DB get under him. And that's just poor wide receiver play. But yeah, I'm a little concerned about this Bills team. I think the Jets are a top 10 defense in the NFL, but the problem is the Patriots are also a top 10 defense. You're playing the NFC East, where the Commanders probably have close to a top 10 defense. The Eagles definitely have a top 10 defense.
Cowboys
have one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best. And so it's like they have a gauntlet. And sadly for them, they play, I think, all 5 of those teams in like an 8-game stretch. Like they just have an absolute gauntlet in the middle to end of the season. So a little bit back to this game, because we got slightly off track. They struggled in week 1. And yes, some of the issues can be cleaned up, but this offensive line still wasn't getting a ton of push in the run game. Josh Allen was making bad decisions. And so I'm curious to see if the Raiders are able to do that. Max Crosby, I think, will have a very good game. So it's going to be interesting, but let's just get into our final predictions here. Who do you think is going to win this game, Tyler?
I will say I think Buffalo's going to be able to bounce back. I think that they just match up well. I think they're just a better team overall. I think Josh Allen's going to bounce back. Stephon Diggs is going to have a good game. I think that this defense, I'll be curious to kind of watch and see how they do against Josh Jacobs, because the Raiders also have a good offensive line as well. What pressure are they going to be able to put onto Garoppolo? They were able to put so much pressure on Zach Wilson, but at the same time, it's Zach Wilson's obviously Zach Wilson. We know exactly what he brings to the table. But this offensive line for the Jets suck, like probably one of the worst in the league. And so I'm curious to see how they end up doing against a much more competent offensive line. That all being said, though, at home, I think home opener, especially too after this, what happened on Monday night, I think that is going to be. I just think it's just a formula for success for Buffalo. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. I'm also going to pick Buffalo. I know Josh Allen didn't play well in week 1. I will say historically, I don't think that they've done too well in week 1. The only reference I have based on that is I know like Pittsburgh came in there two seasons ago and just absolutely shellacked them like 37-13. But it is week 1. Crazy things happen every year. And so I'm going to kind of chalk it up to that. But I do have some concerns. We talked a little bit about them all summer, just kind of with this team going forward. So
and just overall concern as well. Just wrapping up with the Bills, they have a gauntlet of a second half of the schedule, where start with the Jets, but then they go start on November 19th. I think it's the Sunday before Thanksgiving. They go Jets again, but that's at home. At Eagles, at Chiefs, first Cowboys, at Chargers, versus Patriots, at Dolphins. Yeah, I mean it could see a scenario potentially where they don't win a single one of those games, except maybe the Jets, especially if Zach Wilson's quarterback.
Yeah, well, but then 2 weeks before that they play the Bengals, and 2 weeks before that they're at New England. Yeah. And in between there, they do have easier matchups versus the Buccaneers and the Broncos, but still, it's just
it'll be interesting to watch. I mean that's why I think that's why I think this Sunday is a must-win game for them. I mean they have to win this game to kind of keep pace with the other AFC teams that everyone's projected to be that the Bills are on the same level with.
Yeah. So it's going to be exciting to watch them versus the Raiders. Bills are going to have their home opener. We'll see if they can pull it out. But let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win this matchup, the Buffalo Bills or the Las Vegas Raiders. Let us know down below. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.